many clean technology areas, we'll see China taking the lead simply because of the size of the scale of the opportunity. So for example, China has the world's largest wind program. Whether we like it or not, China has the world's largest nuclear program, and China has the world's largest hydro program. So all of these renewable sources of energy are getting to scale in China. And then other technologies, for example, electric vehicles, we know that if China doesn't have an electric vehicle market, the world won't have one. So as the largest automotive market in the world, China is going to become the largest electric vehicles market.
The next wave is truly going to be the globalization through organic development and advancement of Chinese enterprises, setting up operations in Europe, in Africa, in Latin America, putting factories there, hiring local talent, building local leaders, creating global organizations. Clearly it's not going to be stress-free. Organizations that have been doing this for 100 years find this challenging. Chinese companies coming new to this will find it enormously challenging, but it is the way forward. I think as we look back 10 years from now, what we will see is that there will be a significant number of companies that are fundamentally China domestic today that will be calling themselves global companies but with Chinese characteristics.
Foreign competitors will force the Chinese manufacturers to continue to evolve. Perhaps the competition is in some ways just as efficient as you, even newer equipment, even closer to the destination market, in case your destination market, let's just say, is in Indonesia, is in Africa. They've set up shops even closer. So therefore, what is going to be your answer to the competition? Hopefully, we've already seen the beginning traces of this. The Chinese manufacturers' answer for some of the leading players, there will be, look, that's going to force me to go upstream. That's going to force me to go upscale to higher value added, more difficult specialty manufacturing, more dollars in R&D, developing my own brands.
The rising middle class is already creating and will continue to create a significant demand base for more sophisticated products. We actually think that niche products or products in niche categories could actually become a viable play in China. Whereas before, a lot of MNCs and local companies have to put those categories aside because the cost parameters, the economic equation does not work. E-tailing or e-commerce has really changed the channel structure in China, in that previously in third and fourth tier cities, a lot of the market is not accessible for multinationals and for local companies because the channel economics is not strong enough to overcome the scale barrier. Now the emergence and the very strong performance of e-commerce in China has basically created a market where you can really reach third and fourth tier cities consumers in a very efficient way.
E-retailing is eliminating the need for marginal physical presence by stores in second and third tier malls and retail outlets. If one's not in the market today, there's some very interesting new opportunities and ways of getting into the market now that have emerged because of the e-retailing phenomenon and the way that it works in China.
You have an internet space, which is probably the only space that is totally free of regulation in China with regards to consumer sector today, right? And it's very interesting in the past decade, without really a lot of government investment, with the exception of obviously investment in broadband, but if you think about all the major companies in this space, they have all achieved global leading company status with no government backing, right? On the contrary, they've actually achieved this global leading status with minimal government interference. I mean, there are no legacies, there are no significant incumbent players in this space, and Chinese government has really let the private sector thrive. What is required was really a lot of business model innovation and also a lot of entrepreneurism. So I think the combination of these two has already created a significant new economic growth engine in China. We believe that going forward, this will also become potentially China's new competitive advantage relative to other countries.
I think it's safe to say China has had the single biggest build-out of infrastructure in the history of mankind, and still, clearly, more to go. Right now, what China's been doing has been urbanizing land, it hasn't been urbanizing people. And so that means we've kind of created the hardware, but are we giving people really an urban life? Are we giving them access to jobs, to schools, to healthcare? And right now that has not yet been happening. We have sprawl, we have people living in a part urban existence, and they're still not secure. So I think the single biggest and most exciting piece of infrastructure I see is the metro build-out, and China is going to be spending tens of billions of dollars, though, for thousands of kilometers of metro lines. And arguably over 150 million people will live along these metro lines in about 35 cities over the next 10 years. And that's going to fundamentally change the shape of China. Now that the big pieces are in place, the filling in, the densification, and the access being given to people who are now, for the first time in their history, and in history at all, just having this opportunity. So China's waking up, and the lights are coming on.